Close your eyes. Feel the quiet of the night around you. Let the sound of the wind fade away, until all you can hear is a soft whisper of sand moving over stone. You're standing at the edge of time. The desert before you is endless, glowing silver beneath the moon. And somewhere far off, a river moves like a black ribbon through the land. The Nile, the heart of Egypt. Long before pyramids rose from the earth, long before kings wore crowns of gold, there was only the river. It flooded, it receded, it fed the soil, and the people who lived along its banks. It was their breath, their lifeline, their god dots in the gentle rhythm of its waters. The first villages began to grow tiny clusters of huts made from reeds and clay, where people learned to plant seeds, shape tools, and build homes that could outlast the flood. Every year, the Nile rose, slow, steady, sacred, and when the water retreated, it left behind dark, fertile soil. It was as if the gods themselves had blessed the land with rebirth. And from that rhythm, that eternal cycle of death and renewal, Egypt was born. Imagine standing there in the quiet dawn. The air is cool, still carrying the scent of the night. Farmers wade through shallow water, scattering seeds by hand. Children laugh and chase each other through the fields. Far off, heavens rise from the reeds in slow, graceful arcs. No one could have known it then. But those small gestures, the sowing of grain, the shaping of stone, were the beginning of one of the longest stories in human history. Centuries pass. Villages become towns, towns become cities. The people begin to look at the world and see not chaos, but order, apata, written in the stars, the river, the seasons. And they give this order a name. Mat, truth, balance, harmony. It becomes the heartbeat of their civilization. Everything from farming to law, from the way they speak to the way they bury their dead, must follow Mat. Even the kings themselves are bound by it. For to break Mat is to invite chaos, the return of darkness and flood without end. One day, a leader rises from among them, a man strong enough to unite the scattered lands along the Nile. His name is lost to time, but his title will echo for 5,000 years. Pharaoh, the first divine ruler. The bridge between gods and men when he speaks. The people believe it is the voice of the sun itself, the god Ra shining through him, bringing light, warmth, and life. The pharaoh becomes the living embodiment of Egypt's order. And so begins the Age of Kings. The early pharaohs ruled from cities we barely remember now: Thinis, Abydos, Memphis. They built temples to honor the gods who kept the world in balance. Osiris, god of rebirth. Isis, goddess of magic. Horus, the falcon-eyed protector of kings. Every sunrise was a prayer. Every sunset, a promise of rebirth. Life and death weren't opposites here. They were mirrors, two sides of the same eternal journey. To die was not an ending. It was to sail west with the setting sun, and rise again at dawn, reborn with Ra. And so, the Egyptians built, not for the moment, but for eternity. Stone by stone, they carved their prayers into the earth. Temples, tombs, shrines, each one aligned perfectly with the stars, each one whispering to the gods. They believed that what is written lasts forever, and because of that belief, we still hear their voices today, in the royal city of Memphis. The pharaoh commands laborers, artists, priests, and builders. The kingdom hums like a living heart. Ships glide along the Nile, carrying limestone from the quarries of Tura. The sound of chisels rings through the air, the slow rhythm of a civilization shaping its own memory. That they build palaces, they build tombs, but above all, they build pyramids, massive stairways of stone, reaching toward the sky, as if to touch eternity itself. As the moon rises, you can almost see it, a small pyramid taking form, its base wide as a mountain, its peak sharp as a blade of light. Torches flicker along the scaffolding. Workers chant songs to keep time as they pull stones across the sand. Priests raise their hands toward the heavens, calling out to the gods to bless the work. It is the dawn of the old kingdom, and Egypt has begun to dream in stone. Each pharaoh now competes not in battle, but in the scale of his tomb, a monument to his journey through eternity. And among them all, one name will shine brightest: Kolonkufu. He will command the building of a pyramid so vast, so perfect, that 4,000 years later, it will still stand a mountain of human devotion and divine ambition. The Great Pyramid of Giza. The air shimmers with heat. You stand at its base, looking up that the sun blinds you. The horizon seems to bend, each block, to ton sophistong, placed with precision so exact that modern machines still marvel at it. It is not just a tomb. It is a prayer written in architecture, a message to eternity. We were here, and somehow it worked. Night falls again over the desert. The stars appear, brilliant, infinite. The pyramids glow faintly in their light, their perfect edges soft beneath the moon. Somewhere out there, the Nile murmurs to itself, steady and eternal, carrying the reflections of those same stars across its dark surface. The world sleeps, but Egypt dreams unquiet, golden, immortal. The sun rises over the desert, slow and golden, washing the stones of Giza in soft light. The air is cool for only a moment before the heat begins to shimmer again, and the people of Egypt awaken to another day in the service of eternity. In the heart of the old kingdom, the land hums with quiet devotion. Every life from the humble farmer to the mighty priest moves in rhythm with the will of the pharaoh. He is the son of the sun, the divine heartbeat of mat balance, truth, and order. The farmers plant because he commands it. The priests pray because he embodies it. And when the sun rises each morning, it is said that Ra himself guides it across the sky through the pharaoh's soul. For the people of Egypt, work is worship. Building a pyramid is not just labor. It is a sacred duty, a gift to the gods, a bridge between heaven and earth. Each block of stone lifted and placed is a prayer. Each line of hieroglyph, carved into limestone, is a whisper of eternity, and all of it, every chisel mark and sweat-streaked bike, is done in silence and reverence. Because to them, death is not an end. It is only a doorway, and the pyramid is the frame through which the soul will pass. Imagine standing there at the foot of the Great Pyramid, in the time when it was new. The limestone casing still gleams white, so bright it hurts your eyes. The sun reflects off its sides like fire, and at the very top, a golden capstone catches the light, and sends it flashing to the heavens. At its base, the priests of Ra chant beneath banners of gold and red. Incense fills the air with the smell of frankincense and myrrh. Somewhere, the sound of drums echoes through the desert, the steady pulse of a nation at worship. Each pharaoh of the old kingdom sees himself as the guardian of divine order. When the Nile floods too much or too little, it is his responsibility to restore balance. When enemies rise at the borders, it is his courage that must hold them back. And when he dies, he must journey through the stars, sailing in the bark of Ra through the underworld, a realm of trials, monsters, and judgment. There, his heart will be weighed against the feather of truth. If it is light, he will rise again with the sun. If it is heavy with sin, his soul will vanish forever. So they prepare him for that journey with care. His body is wrapped in linen and resin, perfumed with oils, sealed in a golden coffin. Around him, treasures are placed, jewels, food, statues, and scrolls of sacred spells. On the walls of his tomb, artists carve the path to the afterlife, in glowing color. The sun god Ra, the jackal-headed Anubis, the sky goddess Nut stretching across the heavens, her body filled with stars even in death. He will never be alone. But the pharaohs are not the only ones who dream of eternity. Across Egypt, families save and prepare for their own burials. Small tombs carved into rock, offering jars filled with bread and beer, amulets placed over the heart. They believe that the soul will need nourishment and love, just as it did in life. So a beri, tomb large or small, becomes a home, a place where the living and the dead stay connected. And in that belief, Egypt becomes something extraordinary. A civilization built not on fear of death, but on trust in life beyond it. Centuries pass. New pharaohs rise, Kafir, and others whose names still echo softly through the desert wind. They build temples to honor Ra, each one aligned perfectly with the path of the sun. Priests observe the stars each night, charting the heavens, recording time. They learn that the rising of Sirius, the bright star they call Sopdet, marks the coming flood of the Nile. From this, they invent something eternal: the calendar. 365 days, divided into the flood, the sowing, and the harvest. Even today, The rhythm of the year still follows that ancient pattern. But no light shines forever. As the centuries stretch on, the power of the old kingdom begins to fade. The great projects slow, the royal coffers empty. The people begin to question the gods and the balance of Mahat. The pyramids still stand, but their builders grow weary. The desert begins to swallow the edges of their glory. And slowly, the golden age of divine kings begins to crumble into sand. Still, the Nile flows, the people plant. Life goes on, because Egypt is more than its rulers. It is a spirit that endures, shaped by the river, by the stars, by the endless rhythm of the earth. And though the old kingdom fades, another will rise, new kings, new gods, new dreams of eternity. The desert cools again. Night spreads across the land. The stars hang low and bright, like eyes watching over a sleeping world. Somewhere far off, a lone scribe sits by the light of an oil lamp, pressing his reed into fresh papyrus, recording the story of his time. He doesn't know it, but what he writes will survive for thousands of years, because Egypt never truly dies. It only changes form, like the sun reborn each morning from the horizon of eternity. The sun that once shone on the golden age of pyramids now sinks behind the horizon. For centuries, Egypt's kings commanded the world with stone and faith, but now the light grows dim. The great monuments still stand shimmering, ghosts of glory, but the voices that built them have fallen quiet. The old kingdom fades, not with a roar, but with a whisper. The floods of the Nile grow weaker. The harvest fails. The fields dry and crack beneath a merciless sky. The people look to the pharaoh, their divine guardian, and fin only silence. The gods seem distant now, their promises lost beneath the weight of drought and hunger. Even the priests begin to wonder if the sacred balance, has slipped from the world. Imagine walking through a village at this time. The air is heavy, the earth dry and gray. Empty granaries stand like hollow shells. Families gather around small fires, their faces lit by the faint glow of embers. The songs that once praised the pharaoh are now prayers for rain. Somewhere, deep inside every heart, grows a quiet question that Egypt has never dared to ask before. What if the gods have abandoned us? Across the land, the old order crumbles. Local governors, once loyal servants of the throne, become rulers in their own right. They carve out small kingdoms, fighting over grain, land, and power. The pyramids, once watched by thousands of workers, stand alone under the stars. Sand drifts up their sides, burying the roads that once led to their gates. Jackals prowl where priests once prayed. The age of the pharaohs has fallen into darkness. But Egypt is a patient land. It has lived through drought and flood before. And as the years pass, the river returns, slowly, shyly, like a god forgiven. The soil darkens again. The people plant. The air fills once more with the hum of life. Out of the silence, a new voice rises, a king who will bring back order, not through fear, but through care. He comes from the south, from Thebes, a city born of resilience. His name will be forgotten by most, but his legacy will shape centuries. The rebirth of Egypt. Under his rule, the land heals. The temples reopen. The scribes return to their scrolls. The people sing again. They call this new age Kemet's second dawn. What history will remember as the Middle Kingdom, it is a gentler age. The pharaohs still rule, but they no longer build mountains of stone to prove their power. They build temples for the gods. Instead, places of quiet beauty, filled with pillars carved like lotus stalks, and walls covered in prayers, written in perfect lines. They no longer shout their greatness to the heavens. They whisper it through art, through poetry, through grace. One poem from this time survives, written by a scribe whose name is lost. Build your house in the field, and your tomb in your heart. Speak truth, for the tongue is a man's measure. Act justly, for Mat is the breath of the world. It is not the voice of conquest, but of wisdom. Egypt, once obsessed with eternity, now learns the value of peace in Tassit. Sculptors carve statues so lifelike they seem ready to breathe. In the temples, musicians play harps and flutes for gods and mortals alike. On the riverbanks, children laugh again, watching the sails of boats shimmer in the afternoon light. The Nile has returned to its rhythm, and so has Egypt. But memory lingers. The scars of famine and war have changed the people. They no longer see their kings as gods beyond question. Now they believe that even Afama, if he speaks truth and lives by Mat, can share in the blessings of eternity. The afterlife, once the domain of royalty, is now open to all who live with honor. The great tombs shrink, but the faith grows deeper, that for the first time in history, the common man begins to dream of immortality. Far in the south, near the borders of Nubia, stone walls rise once again. Fortresses guard the river. Trade flows from distant lands: ivory, gold, incense, cedar wood. Egypt stretches her arms across Africa and the Near East, not to conquer, but to connect. Caravans move through the desert like slow ships of sand, their shadows stretching across the dunes at sunset. And above it all, the stars shine as they always have, guiding travelers home. The Middle Kingdom lasts for centuries, an age of rebuilding, of rediscovery, of poetry and faith. It is a time when Egypt finds balance again, when Mat is restored. But every sunrise must become sunset, and, as the years pass, the peace that the kings worked so hard to build to slip through their fingers. Ambitious men rise again. Foreign lands call. The desire for glory, that old Egyptian hunger awakens once more. The temples grow richer, the nobles grow restless, and somewhere, in the shadow of the river, new powers begin to stir beyond the horizon. The Middle Kingdom will end, as old golden ages do, quietly, slowly, drowned not by war, but by time. Yet its spirit, its poetry, its love of truth, its calm faith in the order of the world, will remain forever. The Old Kingdom gave Egypt stone. The Middle Kingdom gave it soul. And now, as the last pharaoh of this age fades into memory, the desert wind raises again. The sand begins to move, covering roads, swallowing names, but the river still flows, faithful as the heartbeat of the earth. And with it, a new dawn will come, the age of warriors, of empire, of the gods reborn in golden fire. The night gives way to dawn, and the desert glows again. The Nile winds through the valley, calm and endless, its waters shining like blue glass under the sun. Villages wake to the sound of birds and the rustle of palm leaves. Priests light incense in temples, their voices rising softly in prayer. Egypt has been reborn once more, stronger, wiser, radiant with purpose. This is the new kingdom, the golden age of the pharaohs. After centuries of quiet strength, Egypt begins to dream bigger. It looks beyond its borders, south to Nubia, east to the Red Sea, north to the lands of Syria and Canaan. It is no longer just a kingdom of farmers and priests. It is an empire, and at its heart stands Thebes, the city of 100 gates, where temples rise like mountain sand. The air hums with the sound of worship. The god Omenra, Lord of the Sun, now reigns supreme among the heavens. His temple at Karnak grows larger with every ruler, a forest of colossal columns, each carved with hymns and history. By day, it blazes in sunlight. By night, it glows with torchlight and prayer. The scent of lotus flowers drifts through its courtyards, and the sound of drums echoes through the holy halls. It is said that when you stand within, Karnak can look up at the ceiling painted with stars. You can feel the breath of the gods themselves. The new kingdom begins with warrior kings, men who refuse to let Egypt ever fall again. Amosai, the first of them, drives out in Vadershua, had ruled the delta during Egypt's years of weakness. He restores the land, reunites the people, and sets in motion an age of conquest and prosperity. His bloodline gives birth to the 18th dynasty, the dynasty of Egypt's most famous rulers, a line of pharaohs whose names will outlast the pyramids. Among them is a woman who will defy everything her world believes possible. Her name is Hatshepsut. She is not born to rule, she is born to assist, to support a male heir. But when her husband Thutmose II dies young, she steps forward, not as a queen consort, but as pharaoh. She dresses in royal robes, wears the false beard of kingship, and names herself the chosen of Amen. Many doubt her. but her rule brings peace and wealth, like Egypt has never known. She builds temples that still stand today, none more beautiful than her own mortuary temple, Adir, carved into the cliffs of western Thebes. The sunlight glows golden across its terraces, rows of columns stretching like open arms toward the sky. She sends expeditions to the mysterious land of Punt, returning with gold, incense, ebony, and levimur trees. She rules with calm strength and divine vision. Her reign is long and serene, a dream of order and harmony when Sadia, her stepson Thutmose III, takes the throne. He is a warrior. He marches across the world, his armies reaching farther than any before, into Syria, into Canaan, across the deserts of Nubia. The empire of Egypt shines brighter than ever, but even golden light casts long shadows. In time, pride turns to restlessness, and among the many sons of Egypt, one will rise who dares to question even the gods themselves. His name is Akhenaten. At first, he rules as any pharaoh should, but soon, something inside him begins to shift. He dreams of a single god, a sun, unlike all others, the Aton, the radiant disk of light. He declares that there is only one true divine power, the sun itself. The temples of Ammon fall silent. The priests grow afraid, and Egypt, so long ruled by balance, is thrown into chaos. Akhenaten builds a new city in the desert, Ekot, the horizon of the Oton. There, he worships his god, in open air, his face always turned toward the sun. His wife, Nefertiti, stands beside him, graceful, radiant, her image carved into eternity. Together, they try to reshape the soul of Egypt. But change, especially divine change, never comes without cost. The people grow restless. The priests plot in secret. The old gods wait, silent but patient. And when Akhenaten dies, his city dies with him. The sands reclaim the temples. The statues fall. The old gods return, and in their shadow, a young boy takes the throne, one who will live only briefly, but whose name will outshine all others. Tutan Khamun. He restores the worship of the old gods. He returns the capital to Thebes. He undoes his father's heresy. And then, before he even reaches manhood, he dies. A small tomb, hurriedly prepared, becomes his resting place. The world forgets him for 3,000 years, until 1922, when a team of archaeologists, led by Howard Kotoropins, his tomb, and finds a treasure untouched by time. Gold so pure it gleams like sunlight. Jewels that still glow in the dark. A mask that captures eternal youth. Through him, Egypt speaks again. But long before that discovery, the new kingdom marches on new kings, rise ambitious, powerful, divine. And among them all, one will be remembered as the greatest of them, the builder of temples, the father of monuments, the god who ruled for 67 years. Ramses the Great. Ramses builds cities of stone, temples that blaze with his name. He covers Egypt with his image, his face carved into cliffs, his victories painted across walls at Abu Simbel. Two colossal statues stare out over the desert, their eyes calm and eternal. When the sun rises, its light pours through the temple's chambers and touches the statues. Within a sign that even the heavens bow to his glory, he fights great battles, most famously at Kadesh, where chariots thunder across the plains. Though victory is uncertain, his scribes record it as triumph. For in Egypt, legend is more powerful than truth. Under Ramses, Egypt stands at the peak of its splendor. Gold flows from Nubia, cedar wood from Lebanon, incense from Pante. The temples at Luxor and Karnak expand until they rival mountains. The gods smile upon their land. But even gods must rest. The glory begins to fade again, slowly, softly, like the sunset on the Nile. In the Valley of the Kings, hidden beneath cliffs and silence, the pharaohs of the new kingdom sleep. Their tombs are deep and beautiful, painted with stars and sacred stories. They believed that to speak a name was to keep it alive. And so, they filled their walls with words, hoping to be remembered forever. They were right that the night deepens. The desert cools. The river moves quietly through the darkness, its surface shimmering beneath the moon. The empire of Egypt has reached its height, and soon it will begin its slow descent into memory. But for now, For this perfect, golden moment the gods of Egypt still walk among their people, and the world, bathed in moonlight and myth, breathes in harmony with them. The great sun that once blazed over Egypt's empire begins to sink. It doesn't fall suddenly, it drifts, softly, gracefully, like the sun setting over the Nile after a long, perfect day. The world still glows with its warmth, but the light grows thinner. The songs of victory turn into prayers for endurance. The new kingdom, the age of Ramses, Hatshepsut, and Tutankhamun, is coming to its end. The temples still stand, their walls painted with golden faith, their columns carved with hymns to the gods. But inside, the priests whisper. The offerings are fewer now. The people are tired. The river still flows, but the floods no longer come as strong. The harvest grows uncertain, dotting beyond the borders. Strangers are watching, wait and Egypt. Once the center of the world, is no longer alone. Far to the north, new powers rise, the Hittites, the Assyrians, the Sea People's tribes and empires hungry for land, for wealth, for glory. They come by sea and sand, their sails black against the horizon. They raid villages along the delta, burning what they cannot take. The soldiers of Egypt fight bravely, but each battle feels harder than the last. The gods who once stood beside them feel distant. Now, as if the heavens themselves are beginning to turn away. Ramses the Great has long passed. His descendants rule, but none with his strength. They live in his shadow, borrowing his name, but not his power. The statues still bear his face, but the hands that carved them are gone. Time, silent and patient, does its work. In Thebes, the temples of Karnak and Luxor are still alive with prayer. Priests light torches at dusk, their chants echoing off the stone. But beyond the city walls, the peasants grow restless. The taxes are heavy, the crops are light, and the promise of Mat, the sacred balance, feels fragile again. The divine order that once held Egypt together is beginning to crack. The tombs of the pharaohs, hidden deep in the Valley of the Kings, lie silent beneath the cliffs. But silence is tempting. In the darkness of night, thieves slip into the mountains. They break the seals, cut through walls, and steal the gold meant for eternity. They take amulets, jewelry, even the coffins themselves. When the priests discover it, they weep. They gather what remains, move the royal mummies to secret chambers, and pray the gods will forgive what humans could not protect. That's how Ramses the Great, and dozens of kings before him, ended up resting together in one hidden tomb. A family of gods, sleeping side by side in stolen peace. The empire contracts. The borders shrink. Trade slows. The once bright world grows smaller. Pharaohs come and go, their names fading faster now. Few build monuments anymore. Few can afford them. The glory of Egypt becomes memory, a story told to children, a painting on a broken wall, a prayer whispered in the dark. And yet, Egypt does not die. Even in decline, the people still live by the rhythm of the river. They still wake with the sunrise, still plant in the fertile soil, still offer bread and beer to the gods. For them, Egypt is not a kingdom, it's a way of life, a covenant between the land and the sky. Empires may crumble, but the Nile remains, and so does faith. Eventually, new rulers arrive, foreign kings who wear the crowns of Akhenaten, speak its language, but whose blood comes from other lands. The Libyans, the Nubians, and later the Assyrians, each take the throne in turn. They adopt the gods, rebuild the temples, and call themselves pharaoh. But to the old families, they are outsiders, echoes of a vanished time. Still, the gods accept their prayers, for the gods of Egypt are older than kings. The centuries pass, sand creeps higher. The desert begins to swallow the edges of cities. What was once empire becomes mystery in the night. Jackals roam the ruins. The pyramids, their white limestone long stripped away, stand dark and bare beneath the stars. But even in ruin, they command silence. They have seen famine, war, and invasion, and still they stand, as if the gods themselves refuse to leave. From the Far East, new conquerors come to Persians, and later, a man whose name will echo like thunder across the world, Alexander the Great. He comes not as a destroyer, but as a pilgrim, he bows before the gods of Egypt, calls himself the son of Amun, and is crowned pharaoh. In him, Egypt sees a reflection of its past, a man who believes in destiny. He is young, but his empire brings Greece and Egypt together, and from their union, a new age begins, an age of knowledge and wonder. The Ptolemaic dynasty. Greek philosophers study Egyptian scrolls. Mathematicians measure the stars from temples older than their language. The city of Alexandria resides a marvel of marble and learning, its harbor crowned by a lighthouse that touches the sky, its library filled with every book the world has ever known. For a brief time, Egypt's wisdom returns to the center of the world. The gods are still worshipped, but their names now mix with Greek tongues. Ra becomes Helios. Isis becomes Aphrodite. The old and the new breathe together. At the heart of it all rules a queen, clever, radiant, dangerous. Her name is Cleopatra. But her story, the love, the war, the fall belongs to another night, another tale. For now, the river keeps flowing, the stars keep shining, and Egypt, though older than any empire, still hums with quiet life beneath the moon. Time drifts onward. The Roman banners rise on the horizon. The gods of Egypt fall silent at last. Temples crumble. Languages fade. But the desert remembers. The river remembers. The stones remember. And through that memory, Egypt becomes immortal. The wind moves gently over the ruins of Thebes. The sand glows gold under the last light of the sun. In the distance, the pyramids still catch the fading fire of day, their ancient faces calm and unbroken. And if you stand there long enough, you can almost hear it, the heartbeat of a city never truly stopped. It only learned how to dream forever. The desert night stretches wide and endless. The stars shimmer over the valley where kings once slept in gold. Wind moves softly through broken columns and silent tombs, carrying whispers of prayers that no one living remembers. Egypt, old, proud, patient, is changing again. The gods who once ruled the heavens now share their thrones with strangers. When Alexander the Great came, the people thought perhaps the gods had returned in flesh. He was young, fearless, and when he entered the temple of Amun at Sib, the priests hailed him as son of the sun. But even the brightest stars fade quickly. Alexander died before his dream was done, and his empire shattered like a dropped vessel in the stone. Yet Egypt remained, and from the fragment, a new dynasty was born. The Ptolemies. Greek in blood, Egyptian in soul. At first, the people were unsure. These new rulers spoke a foreign tongue, worshipped unfamiliar gods, and dressed in the style of another world. But soon the Ptolemies learned the truth every conqueror must face. You do not rule Egypt, you joined it. So they took Egyptian names, built temples to the old gods, and claimed descent from the pharaohs themselves. Among them, one name will outshine all others. A queen whose voice could move armies and whose mind could outwit empires. Cleopatra. She was not the first to wear the crown of Isis, but she wore it as if it had been made for her. Fluent in Egyptian and Greek, she studied science, politics, poetry, and stars. She was as much scholar as queen. Her reign began in an age of uncertainty. Rome had become a storm, on horizon, a power too vast to ignore. But Cleopatra did not bow. She charmed, she negotiated, she ruled with intelligence sharper than any sword. And when she met Julius Caesar, their fates intertwined like the Nile and the desert wind. Together they ruled a vision, a dream of Egypt reborn, free and magnificent once more. But dreams, even royal ones, are fragile things. After Caesar's death, Cleopatra found herself standing at the edge of history, fighting to protect her child and her throne against the rising tide of Rome. She loved Mark Antony, and their union defied the world, two lovers standing against an empire. But destiny is patient, and Rome is relentless. When Octavian's armies came, the war was swift and merciless. The Battle of Actium burned their dreams to ash. And so, in her final act, Cleopatra chose her own ending. She dressed in gold and linen, held the aspi to her skin, and slipped quietly into legend. With her death, Egypt ceased to be free. The Roman banners rose over the Nile, and the last pharaoh became memory. Yet even Rome, in all its might, could not silence Egypt's voice. The gods faded from their temples, but they lived on in marble, in books, and in the whispered prayers of those who still remembered. Isis became Venus, Osiris became, Pluto, Horus became Apollo. And in this way, the faith of Egypt flowed into the veins of the world, like the Nile into the sea. Centuries passed. Rome fell. Empires came and went. But still the river moved, and still the pyramids watched. New voices rose in the land. Christian, then Islamic, each layer of faith and language folding gently over the last. The temples of the old gods became churches, then mosques, then ruins, but none erased what came before. Egypt, as always, absorbed, adapted, endured. Travelers from distant lands came, drawn by stories of mummies, by rumors of golden tombs buried beneath the sand. They took fragments, scrolls, and statues. Back across the seas. In the palaces of Europe, Egypt became fascination, a mystery sleeping beneath a desert. And then, one day, a man named Napoleon Bonaparte arrived. His army followed not only by soldiers, but by scholars, painters, and historians. They mapped every temple, sketched every carving, measured every block of stone. When they returned home, they carried Egypt with them, its symbols, its gods, its soul. Soon after, another discovery would awaken the world. In 1799, near the town of Rosetta, a broken slab of stone was found. A decree written in 3 scripts: Greek, Demotic, and ancient hieroglyphs. The Rosetta Stone. For centuries, the language of the pharaohs had been silent, its meaning lost. But now, at last, it could speak again. In 1822, the French scholar Jean-François Champollion deciphered it. For the first time in thousands of years, human eyes could read the words of ancient Egypt. The dead began to speak. Suddenly, the past was alive again. The stories carved on temple walls, the hymns to Ra, the prayers to Isis, the poetry of kings, all returned. The names of forgotten pharaohs, the voices of builders, the dreams of priests, they all breathed again through ink and light. Egypt had waited patiently in silence, and now the world was finally listening. Through the 19th and 20th centuries, archaeologists uncovered tomb after tomb. Abydos, Saqqara, Thebes, Luxor, each layer peeled back like pages in a sacred book. And then, in 1922, in the Valley of the Kings, Howard Carter broke through the sealed door of Tutankhamun's tomb. He raised his lamp and saw gold everywhere. Gold, the treasures of eternity, untouched by time. The world gasped, and Egypt, once again, became the center of wonder. Today, the same Nile still winds its way north, past temples, villages, and modern cities. Children play on its banks. Fishermen cast their nets beneath the same stars that guided the pharaoh's souls. Beneath the sands, the old world sleeps, but never completely. Each grain of dust, each piece of carved stone, is a heartbeat from eternity. And when the wind moves just right, it sounds almost like a voice, whispering across the desert. Remember us, for Egypt is not gone. It lives in every calendar, every temple, every word we use to measure time. It lives in art, in myth, in the way humanity still dreams of forever. The kingdom of the dead became the cradle of memory, and that memory still glows softly, like the embers of a fire that never goes out. The moon rises over the pyramids, and the desert breathes in silence. The stones gleam faintly, and the river glows silver in the night. The old gods may be gone, but their echoes still shimmer in the air, warm, ancient, eternal. If you close your eyes, you can almost see them walking once more throughout the golden fields of the afterlife, where the sun never sets and the heart is lighter than a feather. The desert never forgets. Even when centuries pass, even when the wind buries cities and silence settles over the bones of kings, it remembers. For thousands of years, Egypt slept beneath the sand, its temples half swallowed, its gods silent, its stories waiting. But memory has its own kind of magic. It calls softly to those who listen. And one by one, they came dreamers, explorers, seekers drawn by the whisper of eternity. In the early 1800s, caravans of European travelers arrived, their journals filled with wonder, their eyes wide as they beheld vastness of the pyramids rising from the desert haze. They rode donkeys through ruins, climbed temple walls, traced the carved faces of gods long forgotten. To them, it was as if they had stepped into another world, a world that had never truly died. Only hidden artists painted the Nile at sunset. Temples, glowing gold and orange riders, filled pages with tales of mummies and magic. And soon, the word Egypt became not just a place, but an idea. Even as scholars uncovered the truth of its history, the poets and dreamers wove something deeper, a romance of sand and stars, of kings and curses, of life beyond death. Victorian travelers carried amulets, believing them to hold ancient power. Collectors filled rooms with papyrus scrolls and scarabs, each fragment a key to some greater mystery. Museums rose across Europe, their halls echoing with names once spoken only in temples. Ra Osiris, Isis, Horus, Thoth. The gods of Egypt lived again, this time in glass cases, under electric light. And yet, for every artifact behind museum walls, the true Egypt, the living Egypt, remained beyond reach. The peasants still tilled the fields with wooden plows. The fishermen still sang to the river. The call to prayer echoed across the same valley where the priests of Ammon once burned incense. The people who lived among the ruins saw the past, not as history, but as presence. For them, the old gods were never gone, only quiet. In 1922, the world's fascination turned to awe. Deep beneath the cliffs of Thebes, in the Valley of the Kings, Howard Carter brushed sand away from a sealed doorway. He held a candle close, and peered through a small hole in the wall. When his assistant asked what he saw, he answered softly, "Yes, wonderful things." Inside lay treasures untouched for 3,000 years. Gold, alabaster, onyx, lapis lazuli, and, in the center, the resting form of a boy king. Cuthamun. The newspapers called it the discovery of the century. But, it was something quieter. A whisper from the past, a reminder that the dead still have stories to tell. The discovery reignited the world's love affair with ancient Egypt. Films were made, books were written, tourists flooded to Luxor and Giza. Everywhere, people spoke again of pharaohs, curses, and eternal life. But in Egypt itself, something deeper stirred, a sense of pride, a return of ownership. The tombs and temples were not just relics. They were home. They were the heartbeat of an age had endured for 7,000 years. By the mid-20th century, archaeology had become less about conquest and more about care. Egyptian scholars took the lead, preserving, studying, and protecting what their ancestors had built. The modern Egyptian state, newly independent, began to see the ancient past not as something lost, but as something living. The temples of Karnak and Luxor were cleaned and restored. The Aswan Dam project, though mighty and modern, required a miracle of preservation. Entire temples, like Abu Simbel, were cut into massive blocks and moved to higher ground to save them from the rising waters. It was a labor worthy of the pharaohs themselves. Modern hands, protecting ancient souls. As the decades passed, Egypt entered a new chapter, one of rediscovery, reflection, and reverence. Tourists came from every corner of the world, seeking what could not be found anywhere else, a glimpse of eternity. They rode camels past the pyramids at dusk, watched the sun set in the desert's quiet breath, and listened to guides speak the names of gods that had not been spoken aloud for millennia. In tear eyes, you could see wonder, the same wonder the ancient builders must have felt as they lifted stone toward the sky. Even now, in the 21st century, Egypt is a bridge between time and memory. The city of Cairo buzzes with life, cars, lights, laughter, while just beyond its edges, the pyramids stand in silence, unchanged. People scroll through their phones, and behind them, the Sphinx watches, as it always has, with eyes that have seen everything and forgotten nothing. At night, the wind carries the smell of the river and the sand. Children sleep under the same stars that once guided the builders of Giza. The moon rises, silver and patient, casting light on stones, older than any written word. And if you listen carefully, you might hear a faint murmur, not from ghosts, but from time itself. It says, "I am Egypt. I was here before kings and after empires. Am the breath between worlds." That Egypt no longer rules the earth, but it rules memory. Every civilization since has looked to it for inspiration, for art, for mystery, for proof that humanity can touch eternity. The pyramids are more than tombs. They are promises, proof that what we build with love, with devotion, can outlast death itself. And in that way, Egypt never truly ended. It simply became immortal. The night is deep over the desert. The wind has softened to a whisper, and the stars hang heavy and bright above the Nile. The pyramids stand like mountains of memory, their edges silver in the moonlight. No pharaohs walk here now. No priests light torches in the temples. And yet, the air still hums with presence. It's as if the land itself, remember shed it once was, the beating heart of the world. Egypt's greatness did not end with its kings. It became something quieter, something that slipped into the dreams of those who came after. The Greeks saw wisdom in its temples and called it the cradle of philosophy. The Romans saw eternity in its monuments and took its gods as their own. Even as new faiths rose, Christianity, Islam, the idea of Egypt, lingered woven into prayers and stories hidden between the lines of holy books. For how could humanity ever forget the first civilization that dared to challenge time? Everywhere you look in history, you can find its fingerprints. In the architecture of cathedrals, you can feel the memory of pyramids. In the halo around sins, you can see the sun disk of Ra. In the wings of angels, the echo of Isis spreads wide. Egypt taught the world how to build heaven on earth, not through conquest, but through belief. Through the simple advait, what we create can last forever if we make it with purpose. And perhaps that's the real miracle. Not the gold, not the statues, not even the pyramids themselves, but the endurance of meaning. Thousands of years after its fall, Egypt still inspires. Its symbols appear in art, in jewelry, in music, in dreams. Painters fill their canvases with desert light. Writers speak of eternity and rebirth. Even in the digital age, we look at these ancient wonders and feel something awakened inside us. A longing for mystery, for beauty that never fades. Think about this. In all of human history, only a few things have truly endured: the sky, the sea, and Egypt. Civilizations rose and vanished, languages changed, empires burned, but the stones of Giza still catch the sunrise just as they did 5,000 years ago. The same wind that moved through papyrus reed still moves through the streets of Cairo. The same constellations that guided the builder still shine above us tonight. Time passes, but Egypt remains. The reason, perhaps, is that Egypt was never just a place. It was a philosophy, a way of seeing the world as eternal. To the Egyptians, nothing ever truly ended. The soul, the Sia, lived on. The river always returned. The sun always rose. To live was to participate in an unbroken circle, a balance between death and life, light and shadow, order and chaos. A circle called Mat. And even now, that philosophy endures. When people meditate, when they seek balance, when they speak of karma, they echo the wisdom that Egypt whispered millennia ago. The idea that harmony sustains life, that justice is divine order, that what we give to the world returns to us. The language has changed, but the truth has not. In museums across the world, statues of gods stand behind glass. Ra's falcon eyes, Isis wings, Osiris come face, their paint faded, their stone cracked, and yet their presence fills their room. People walk by in silence, feeling something ancient stir inside. They might not know the names, but they feel the weight of time. The beauty of devotion. For every piece of stone, every carving and scroll, was made with one simple faith: that meaning outlives matter. And they were right. When we dream of eternity, we are dreaming in Egyptian. When we build monuments, we are thinking as they did, reaching toward the sky, trying to speak with the gods. They taught us that memory is sacred, that names have power, that death is not darkness but transformation. And in that, they gave humanity something greater than empire. They gave us continuity. A reason to hope. We, too, can leave something behind. Now the air cools again. The desert is silent, except for the sigh of sand. The moon climbs higher, casting pale light over the land. From above, Egypt looks like a dream. The silver line of the Nile, the golden breath of dunes, the black shadows of the pyramids. And beneath it all, Somewhere deep within the earth, the spirits of kings, queens, builders, and dreamers sleep in peace, not gone, just waiting. Because Egypt taught the world that waiting is part of eternity. The night deepens. You can almost feel the stillness of time itself. Slow, steady, endless. If you close your eyes, you can hear the heartbeat of the world showing softly through the desert air. And in that rhythm, you can hear Egypt, not ancient, not gone, but alive, breathing still. The desert is silent now. The heat of day has vanished, and the cool breath of night moves gently through the valleys. The stars stretch endlessly overhead, the same stars the pharaohs once looked upon as they dreamed of immortality. For them, those stars were not distant suns. They were souls. Every light in the sky was a spirit reborn. And maybe they were right. Close your eyes. Imagine the world as they saw it, a living circle. Every sunrise a beginning, every sunset a promise of return. The Nile flows through darkness, its water shining under the moon. The reeds whisper softly along its banks. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. The same call it's made for thousands of years. Time feels small here. Everything breathes in rhythm. The river, the wind, the stars, even you. Egypt's story is long, but its lesson is simple. That life is a pattern, and we are part of it. The gods of Egypt were not distant, buying sheeten in clouds or heavens. They lived in the earth, in the sky, in the breath of every creature. To live with Mat, with truth, with balance, was to live in harmony with all things. And maybe, without realizing it, we still carry that lesson. Every morning we rise, and it is a kind of rebirth. Every night we rest, and it is a kind of death. And when we dream, we travel through the same fields of starst ancient Egyptians, called the Duat. The land between this life and the next. To them, the soul's journey never ended. It only changed form, like water becoming mist, like the sun dipping below the horizon only to rise again. They believed that every life was connected, that each breath, each kindness, each act of creation, was part of something eternal. And in that way, they built the first philosophy of peace. Now, thousands of years later, their voices are faint but still there, carved in stone, painted on walls, written in symbols of birds and stars and waves. When you stand in front of those carvings, you can almost feel their heartbeat. You can almost hear them say, "We were here. We loved, we built, we believed." And when you listen closely enough, you realize they're not just speaking of themselves. They're speaking of us, because every person who has ever lived wants to be remembered, wants to be seen, wants to know that their life mattered in Egypt, with its temples and tombs, and stories carved in eternity, was humanity's first great answer to that need. To remember is to honor. To speak an is to keep a soul alive. And tonight, by remembering them, you keep them alive once more. The pyramids rise in your mind's eye now, massive, ancient, silent. The air around them is perfectly still, the stars reflected on their smooth sides. You realize they are not tombs. They are messages. Not to the gods, but to the future. To us. They say, we were here. We reached for the impossible. We became eternal by daring to imagine eternity. In a way, the same longing lives in all of us when we create, when we love, when we build or write or care for another soul. We are trying to touch forever, to leave a mark that says, I was here too. And that's the heart of Egypt's story. It isn't just about kings or monuments. It's about the quiet, shared wish to outlast time, to make our brief lives part of something infinite. The sand drifts softly over the stones. The river glows silver in the moonlight, and the air feels thick with memory, not heavy, but peaceful. It's as if the whole world is breathing with you, slow and deep, ancient, and new all at once. You inhale, and the desert exhales. You exhale, and the river flows a little slower. You are part of the same rhythm thought once guided the hands of builders, the prayers of priests, the heartbeat of a nation that refused to die. And in that stillness, something inside you softens the worry, the noise, the rushing thoughts. They fade like footprints in the sand at dusk. All that remains is breath and the gentle hum of time itself. For the story of Egypt is not only history, it's a lullaby. A song about the endurance of spirit, a reminder that everything passes and everything returns. I want you to take a slow breath. Inhale and exhale. Let the sound of the wind fade. Let the weight of the world fall away. Now, you're standing once more on the edge of the Nile. The water glows silver under the moonlight, that the air is cool and soft against your skin. And all around you, the desert stretches to infinity, quiet, ancient, alive. The pyramids rise in the distance, dark against the starlit sky, their peaks touching eternity itself. Nothing moves, nothing hurries. Time has no meaning here. This is the Egypt that never ends. The Egypt that lives not in stone or sand, but in memory and breath in you. Listen closely, do you hear it? The faint hum of the river, the sigh of the desert wind, the whisper of the stars. This is the same music the pharaohs once heard as they drifted to sleep, beneath the ceiling of the heavens. It is a sound of forever soft, slow, endless. For a moment, let it fill you. Let it quiet your thoughts, slow your heartbeat, and remind you that you, too, are part of this endless story. The Egyptians believed that the soul was made of light, a spark from the sun itself. When they did, that spark returned to the stars. And each night, as the heavens turned, their souls shone down on the living, guiding them home. Maybe that's still true. Maybe the stars above us tonight are not distant fires, but ancient hearts, still glowing, still watching, still at peace. Now imagine lying back on the warm sand. The grains shift gently beneath you. The air smells faintly of lotus and water. The world is utterly still. Above you, the constellations of Osiris and Isis gleam softly. The Milky Way stretches across the sky, like the river of the afterlife, a pathway of light. You can almost feel the earth breathing beneath you, slow, calm, eternal. Every heartbeat, every breath, echoes the same rhythm that has moved through this land for 7,000 years. You are not separate from it. You never were in this moment. The boundaries between past and present disappear. There are no kings, no wars, no names, only the vast, quiet truth of existence. The same wind that touched the face of Ramsino brushes your skin. The same moon that shone on the builders of Gizano watches over you. The same stars that guided the dead guide your dreams. You are living in their eternity, and they are resting in your breath. Let go. Now lets the desert hold you. Let's the story fade into silence. The people who built these wonders are gone, but their peace remains. It lingers in the sand, in the water, in the light of the moon. And as you rest, that peace becomes yours too. You don't have to reach for eternity. You already carry it. It's in your breath. It's in your heart. That it's in the stillness between moments. The night deepens. The pyramids shimmer faintly, their stones glowing like embers under the stars. The river moves like a slow breath through the dark. The whole world seems to exhale. Somewhere, far off, a temple bell rings once, soft and low, echoing across the desert. And then silence. Perfect, complete silence. The kind that feels holy. The kind that feels like forever. You can sleep now. The story has been told that the gods have gone home. The stars keep their watch. And Egypt.com. Eternally Jepet rests once more beneath the moon. Everything is in balance. Everything is at peace. The river flows. The sand drifts. The heart slows. And you are part of it. So, close your eyes. Let your breath match the rhythm of the Nile, slow, steady, eternal. The world fades to silver light. Noise becomes nothing. And the story that began at the dawn of Tammuz now in peace. The sun will rise again tomorrow. The stars will return again tonight. And you will rest, safe and still, under the same sky that once watched the pharaohs dream. Good night, sleep well. The desert remembers, and so do you.